Rightio, so this week we are looking at guitar number 2, and there's a creamy sort of, well, no, I wouldn't call that cream actually, there's a whitish colour scheme going on here this week. What we have here is a vintage SG made by JHS, or the John Hornby Skews manufacturing company, and vintage, very, very well respected copy of all, makes copies of all the familiar shapes, the best known guitar shapes, and vintage makes a surprising amount of them actually. Every time you think you know everything that's in the vintage range, you look at you see something on eBay and you find another shape that you probably didn't even know existed, far less that vintage made a version of it. They do, and they are really affordable, and they're surprisingly well made with really, really good quality hardware. I think so anyway, from my experience so far. These pickups are pretty good. The build quality is very good, and they come together as a superb package. So right down from the Clousson style vintage tuners. In this case, these are not, let me just check, these aren't the easy lock versions. They don't come as standard on these guitars, but it's a, I don't know how many frets this has got. Let's look, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22 fret rosewood fingerboard. I think the body is mahogany, or your Far East equivalent. It just makes sense to call it mahogany because it's a hardwood of the same kind of density as mahogany. 2 volumes, 2 tones, pickup selector switch, your jack plug socket, and your little electric bay cover at the back there, and a set neck, glued neck. So very, very clean joint on this thing. All very nicely done. This guitar is, for me, is a bit of a curiosity. I've not seen one of these so-called white vintages before. But if you take a look at this thing is, it's almost green. I know it's not helped by the green, what do they call these things? Petals, I don't know, rosewood thingy tuners. There's a funny name for it, to do with flowers. Anyway, it's not helped by the green on there, or the gold actually, but I'm not joking, this definitely looks, it's more yellow, mixture of yellow and green in there. That's not even antique cream, so definitely not white for me. And when I saw it out of the box, some of the hardware looks really new, and some of it looks a little bit worn. For example, the headstock looks incredibly new. The hardware on there, everything's still completely gold, hardly any scratches anywhere. So it made the guitar feel really new, but the seller says it's not necessarily that new at all. It has some interesting strap imprints, or something imprints on the back. They look to me like some Go Faster flame stickers that have been on there in the past. But the thing that made me curious is it just feels to me like not a colour you'd expect. So I kind of really looking for signs of it having been resprayed at some time. And I don't know, there are little things that make me think it has, and then as soon as I think it has, there are things that make me think, no, this is pretty spot on. So I'll know a bit more when I take take various bits off and out, see what's underneath things. But yeah, great acquisition. These are fantastic SG guitars. They play brilliantly. This one's not too badly set up already. The intonation looks so-so, and the action feels quite nice. So I look forward to giving this a little test drive before we start cleaning it. But like all things, it's probably going to turn out to have a fair old number of uneven frets. Having a quick look down here, and there's not much relief in that neck, but we'll see what it needs. But yeah, that's number 2 this week. So vintage SG with gold hardware and slightly funny colour bleed through onto the strap. Has a few little knocks and dents that I'd want to fill. I've ordered some vintage cream, or a couple of vintage white lacquers, see if I can get a approximate colour. It's not going to be perfect with this because I found it very hard anyway to get a match to Wilkinson colours, and they tend to be less easily, I found them a lot harder to find. So it'll probably be some reasonable match to fill in some of these unsightly little chips, but apart from that it's in pretty nice nick, and we just want to repair those and just smooth them out so that they don't interfere with the playing action. But yeah, number 2, very nice. Vintage SG. Thanks to Trevor Wilkinson for all those wonderful bits of hardware that you find on these. So look forward to getting this one set up. Hello, Sam here, coming to you from down under on the Reloved Guitars workbench. And hello, I just want to show you what we're going to be doing. Oh yes, well, I've just introduced this guitar. So here we have the vintage white. Well, white is not quite the colour. It's a sort of, depends. It almost looks luminous. It's a greeny white colour, SG, and I'm going to be taking this thing apart now quite rapidly, so that we can get it into the production system. I'll use a bit of my favourite stuff, naphtha, to get that off. So this guitar we're looking at here is a very well respected model of Les Paul copy by Vintage. They're very popular and they play and sound great. I've had a few of them now, including I've got one in the house in black. That's my first black one. I've had 2 cherry coloured vintage ones, and this is my first in this strange luminous white. But it also has, from the previous owner, it has a strange kind of, it's picked up a strange colour from, he says, from the strap, and I wonder if it's not from, it looks, maybe it is, maybe it's something in the strap has reacted with the finish here, which again I haven't been able to find out, to be honest, whether this is polyurethane or whether it's nitrocellulose, but it's picked up a little bit of a shadow, dark pattern from the strap or whatever it was leaning against it for some long period of time, maybe in a case. It has a few little tiny dings, and I haven't really got an equivalent colour, but I've got a bit of creamy vintage cream that I'm trying to fill those and just get them levelled off before we sell the guitar. But everything works, I think. I'll just do a quick plug-in test. It's good to know before we go off into taking things apart, to know whether we've got some remedial electronics work to do. Got very low action already on this guitar. Just put it on a clean sound for a minute so we can hear the difference in the pickups. So rhythm, both. Everything nice. What's interesting is I can see that the bridge is absolutely down to its stop, which is quite an interesting one, which means there is no more lowering of the action we can do on this thing. So just a quick run through. Vintage logo, good old fashioned, gold coloured machinery. We've got the Wilkinson Deluxe tuners on there, Clousson style things, very nice looking. Good condition neck, a couple of little spots that I need to sand out and fill with lacquer. Everything in order down here, slightly faded gold hardware, bog standard tunematic bridge and tailpiece, funny little top sombrero hat things, but a couple of little dents, and otherwise all in good nick, no cracks, no structural damage anywhere. Like I said, we have the tunematic bridge is right down on its haunches, so looks at first glance that there's absolutely no other adjustment we can make on this action, which is quite interesting to note that. And it is working at 1.5, actually it's 1. I think it's 1.75 millimeters, which is interesting to find a guitar with that that level fixed. We do have a bit of work left to do on the nut action here. I can see already that's higher than it needs to be. But even with 1.75, that would be a nice playing, will be a nice playing guitar. So while I'm at it, I'm just going to go straight into taking off the old strings. Seems a shame when it hasn't been played into the ground, but c'est la vie. Can't do the work we need to do with them still on, and I'm not going to sit here and play it for 6 months to wear the strings out just to get my money's worth out of them. So yeah, all in all, this is a fine condition guitar. It is an odd colour. It's kind of a yellow. Sorry, it's a white with a hint of. Well, it would almost be as if you put luminous paint into a white, creamy white colour. That's what it reminds me of. You know, I remember how luminous paint had a slight green hue to it. If you remember the stars you might put on the wall in your bedroom or something. Come on, cut. So not as white as I'd like, or not my favourite kind of white, I have to say. It'd be interesting to see whether with our scratch removal or any of our surface finishing creams we can remove any of that discoloration on the back. But if not, it's only superficial. It doesn't affect anything in terms of its playability. But you know, if we're going for making it look as good as we can, we'll take a look at that. Okay, so I'm going to take off. Let's just see, is there any more adjustment? No, we are proper job on the stops. Now what I'm looking for right now is a box to put bits in, because I'm once again run out. I guess I'll have to use the big bowls. So vintage SG parts in there. That is quite stiff, but it will come out with a tweak of the screwdriver. I'm just, as a sort of convention, I put all bits in, take all the bits off that I can, just so that I can get as good an overall clean as possible of all the surfaces. And that will include pulling the hats off wherever possible. Hard to grip usually, but possible. And then we'll also take off the scratch plate to give it a clean underneath as well. Not that it makes much difference, it's only a superficial cosmetic thing. Okay. It gives us a chance to have a look under, look at the paintwork underneath, clean up around the edges, make it as good as we can make it. Very chunky, that's a big thing. That's about 5mm of scratch plate, which is quite substantial. And we've got this little filler unit in here that covers over the joint, the neck joint, the tongue of the neck, or I suppose you could call it, where it glues into the body. And that's interesting. That sometimes reveals things. And on this one, it shows I wouldn't say it's a crack exactly, but it shows a little. It shows you can see clearly the edge of the neck tongue as it goes into the slot, because the screw goes right into that space. But everything about this is absolutely rock solid. So yeah, I was going to take this back bit off, just have a quick look inside. Got screws spinning there because it's threaded. Sometimes when we have a situation like that, what I'll do is I'll sometimes put a bit of I don't know, liquid nails or whatever that stuff is called into the little wood slot there, and just to allow the screw to bite into something, because it's obviously run out. It's kind of worn out over time. Filthy. So we'll give all of that a clean. Nice to just leave everything cleaner than we found it. And this guitar, absolutely nothing about these. That's a bit loose, but there's nothing I do about that. Nothing about these tuners that I'm going to alter or change, and it's all in good condition. So I'm not going to want to do anything with those. A horrible flimsy little truss rod cover here, which I'm going to take off because I want access to the truss rod itself. But the cover is it's missing 2 screws. But like a number of these vintage guitars, not only these but the V100s, it's such a such a, I don't know, flimsy, cheap-looking little triangle of plastic. Such that I've ended up in some cases making my own kind of thicker and more substantial plastic, just because I don't know, I'm not a fan of thin, mean-looking little bits. If you're going to put something on a guitar, make it look at least decent. Just a personal view. Dead strings out the way. So for now, just before I finish up now, I'm just going to give this a quick one over and also once over on the neck, and then I shall take off for some family outing and come back to this at a later date. But it's nice to get some of the grime off in the first instance, so that we're not kind of working through goo. And also, when you take the grime off in a first off, sort of once over clean, it also tells you, you can also see better what you're dealing with in terms of imperfections and things that are wrong with the surface or the finish. So it's better to be able to see that really clearly instead of looking through the filter or a lens of dirt. Interesting. I'm really curious to know whether anything about this these marks will come off with some deep surface cleaning, but we'll see. Only time will tell. Okay, so as I'm doing this, I just soak this rag a bit more and just give the neck a good old once over to get the previous owner's genetic traces off it. Nothing personal, just I guess everybody likes their own. It's quite clean anyway. This guitar looks like it's been set up in some fashion or other in the not too recent past, probably prior to selling. It was a very good price online, delivered without any fuss and reasonably good packaging. Unlike some that I've had recently, which just the packaging was so poor it was just laughable. For which I've left my first ever, well, I was lucky not to get negative, but I left a neutral piece of feedback. Because the guitar itself was good, but it was the fact that the guitar arrived in one piece was nothing short of a miracle, given the absolutely appalling, ridiculously inept packaging. A guitar exactly like this, only cherry, was put into a box, which was one-ply cardboard, not even corrugated cardboard that you might expect from a proper guitar box or even a cycle box. It was put into one-ply thickness cardboard, guitar-shaped box, and it was just free to rattle around inside that. It wasn't fixed. There were about 8 or 9 small cubes of some sort of foam, plasticky foam stuff that presumably, I don't know, was intended to do something, but clearly didn't. They were just loose, rattling around like some lonely little barbecue briquettes or something. And it arrived with its machine heads poking through the cardboard, not surprisingly, because it was so flimsy. One of them was bent. I contacted the seller and had one reply, which it sounded, he wasn't explicit, but it gave me an impression that he was prepared to find another tuner to match, and then just went silent. So again, can't do eBay like that. So here we are, first stage. I'm going to just put this to the side now. I will hang it back up for the time being, but we will be ready to mask up the neck and get ready to start work on this one. But generally speaking, a nice single unit. Some mixed in, very happy. Particularly if they want the glow-in-the-dark guitar. No, it isn't glow-in-the-dark, but it'd actually be quite cool if it was. Maybe it is, I don't know. Have I come in here in the dark? I have been in here in the dark and it doesn't glow. Right, I shall write on to the non-stick surface of this bowl what this thing is. And this is the vintage SG white-ish. And we've got a nice bags of boxes of stuff all over the place now, but thankfully they are all perfectly well marked up alongside certain fluids for cleaning, which I don't want to mix up with, I'll get these confused with parts, buckets. Oh, come on, in you go. Right, room for everything and everything in its place or something. Okie dokie, so off on family business. I'll see you later. Goodness, I can scarcely believe it. There's a mosquito in here somewhere. And we're about to go into the 1st of November. Right, fret levelling. I've marked up, I've masked off this neck. I've checked how many frets are uneven, and it's in this case 65% of them marked up by green. I've covered all of the frets with black marker pen, and now I'm going to use the fret levelling file to just do them en masse. I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to just protect the pickup here by winding it down. Hopefully it'll go down. Sometimes it just doesn't do what you want. Right, I won't go any further down. And so I'm also going to protect it with some tape. Because I don't want to damage it, the tool does actually clear it. But okay, so all I do is I go running down the neck. It's a really high one down here, I can tell. And there's a mosquito in here, it's hard to believe. I can feel the thing rocking over this one. My God, it's huge. Going slightly off the edge. Now this is, God, I can still feel this one rocking, so I'm going to have to come back this way and pay some real hard attention to getting this right. I can see it's taken quite a lot of metal off this fret, but we need to do it because it's currently uneven. So the rule of the game here is we have to go down to the lowest common denominator, if you like. So if you've got a really low fret, as shown by the parts on here where no metal has been taken away, if we don't want a low spot, which will show up as a high spot comparatively, we have to keep on going until we take that high spot away. Now this, I've still got high fret here, this is monstrously high, this one, so I'm going to keep on going. It sounds really harsh, but I've got to do it. I'm also doing it to get to the bottom of these ones here as well, because there's no point having low spots still in evidence. So of the 3 SGs, this one, the neck worried me most. Even though this one has 90% uneven frets, it's this one that has the biggest unevenness. We're almost getting there. I'm going to do another run down this side to take stuff. It's unbelievable, I can hear a mosquito whining around in my ear hole. So, got to be willing to fire away at these frets until you get everything level. Sometimes there comes a point where you just know, you have to admit you haven't got enough material left, in which case you just can't do it, and you concede defeat. Okay, we've dug it out, that's brilliant, it's gone away. So once you've done the levelling, go back over everything you've done and just make sure it's actually taken away the problem. Almost always it does with this this technique because it's so thorough. Only in severe cases where you have a massively high fret, and you can see how high this fret is by the fact that it's now spread the levelling has spread the width of the flat spot now to about 2.5 millimeters. It's a really, really, really bad fret. Now that will have dictated, very strongly dictated. A little bit left there. I'll come back and get that. That will have dictated. That bit there will have dictated how this guitar played, and it would have dictated the possible playing action that the owner could have had. It would have limited the options. Right, brilliant, we are done. That one is now, oh, I tell you what we have to do. It's ready to do the next stage. But before we do that, we put a stripe of black marker pen on top of everything we've just done. And the reason for that now is that the marker pen, the next stage, is going to be really important in telling us that we've managed to reshape our fret from a flat topped thing to a nice rounded shape, but without taking it any lower. And the reason the marker pen is useful for that is that so long as we leave some black marker pen on top of this fret, we know we haven't reduced the height. Okay, so I'm going to switch and do another one. Right, so here we are getting ready to reprofile the frets on here. Imagine the square top of the fret. We've got a concave tool, and we're going to use this file, and we're going to cut. Thank you. We're going to cut away at the edges, the sharp edges, and it will settle lower and lower until it's rounded the fret. But we'll stop just before it removes the last bit of black marker on the top, which will tell us we haven't lowered the fret height, which is what we want to avoid doing. Now I'm interested in what we're going to do with this really, really seriously high one. It's very easy to use this tool, and it's working away really, really efficiently and easily on these frets. Here we are on the big one. I'm just going to concentrate on cutting that end down to size. Hard work. Tilting the file a little bit to try and bring this one on board, so to say, because it's a really badly set fret by the looks of it. It's got quite a bit of work to do to reprofile it the way it's got to be. So we're getting there, but it's taking a fair bit of hard work, but we got there. But you see there's a lot of material coming off that one. And the rest should be relatively easy comparatively anyway. And once I've done this, I'll have reprofiled all three vintage SGs in one go, pretty much, in one sitting. So I will go, careful, I'm going to stop and have a cup of tea and call it quits for working on these guitars for tonight. you can see how much time this takes. And when I started doing this, I used to ask, just to wonder why it is that it's not done by the shop or by the factory. And I guess it was by the time I'd done a few of them and seen how much time and concentration it takes to do it, I think it's then you start to realise why it's not done, because there's no other way of doing it other than doing it this way, and this time and effort is going to cost money. But the market, I suppose, is a highly competitive price market in budget electric guitars. It won't tolerate charging £200 for a Squire Affinity Strat, which would be the price or the cost of it if you actually did this kind of setup work to make it play properly, to ensure that the frets were seated and treated properly. But of course, of course, people won't pay that sort of money, so it's not going to get done. So in a way, the customer is to blame, I guess, because what they're willing to pay dictates the corners that are cut. So this is one way to look at it. The customer is constantly pushing for cheaper product, and so the manufacturer is going to make a cheaper product one way or another. Okay, so here we have the reprofiled frets, and I'm going to put this off to one side and come back to this guitar another day. In fact, I'm going to hang these back up because that's it for tonight. The whole neck treatment on one of these guitars, or pretty much any electric guitar, takes about 90 minutes. And there's no quicker way of doing it. It's a standard sort of time, about 90 minutes. And that 90 minutes is, will cost somebody somewhere. And time is always money, so the difference is when you see this, the difference in this guitar, or you watch this video and you recognise the difference, this quality difference in this guitar, then that is going to make sense to you. That additional cost, that or the value that's been added, and the cost that goes with that value. But majority of budget guitar purchasers aren't watching a video like this to understand that value, and they're just basically wanting to buy on price. They've seen it somewhere at a certain price and they expect to have it at that price. I'm just, by the way, just gluing the nut back on this. It got knocked off. Okay, I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to do this one, which is open. Yeah. So I guess we're all sort of slightly to blame in that we all want the best price we can get. The manufacturers and the shop's the same. I mean, I was talking to a renowned shop down in this part of the country the other day, just when I had a look around, and I asked them if they have hundreds of Gibsons and God knows what hanging off the walls, and I asked them to tell me how those were set up, and what kind of setup routine did they have from getting them out of the crate or whatever is out of the box. And basically, they told me, in no uncertain terms, that they don't do anything to them when they get them out of the crate, unless a customer specifically requests a particular kind of thing, maybe a different set of strings or a certain adjustment to the truss rod or something for very, very specific preference. They will take these guitars out of the box from the manufacturer, and they will hang them up on the wall, or dangle them off the wall or whatever, and sell them to you, and that's it. And the guy said he told me they had 3 people working in their workshop. He said they were busy all week long just doing repairs, and he said, he kind of shook his head and said to me, you know, if we set up every guitar that's hanging here, we'd never do anything else. So I thought that was really interesting. Okay, so that's that with this vintage guitar, and we're going to do something else for light relief now, so I will catch up with you later. Yeah, I'll have a quick... It's the thing about the 800 grit scratches, is you can't see them, but you can see that it's finer than it was.
Yeah.
And there you're ready to go. Okay, yeah, micromesh time. Now here you don't need to look at the stuff now, you're on the home stretch, but I'd give the first one some more time because you're jumping twice the grit, or half the grit.
Whichever one.
You know what I mean, from 800 to 15. So it's quite a jump, so it'll take a little bit longer to wear the scratches down to the right.
Yeah.
I've got another neck actually that needs, well I've got that one that needs doing, and then there's this one here, the decapitation. Oh no, that's not really politically correct now either, is it? This is the one that. This is the one that.
So bad.
This is the one that somebody. Hey, this is even still running and it's not plugged in. This one is one that somebody tried to chop the head off, and I've glued it together and tried to fix it.
Wow.
It's not going to get sold because I couldn't sell that to anyone. But what I will do is put some pickups on it and have a bit of a laugh.
Frankenstein it.
That kind of thing. Plug in. Thank you.
You'll Frankenstein it like the other one.
Yeah. And that one I can sell for a small, you know, less money. But yeah, might as well use this now. Let's probably save it from certain death. I could put my own Frankenstein logo on it.
Yeah. So imagine getting to the end of this without having to do the demo. How nice. Yeah. We'll have this splatter it all over on workshop. Workshop. Shed.
It's a workshop.
Is it a workshop
I've
there?
got some more of that scratch removal stuff. Expensive scratch remover.
Oh.
2 more of those.
Nice.
Also, this colour is such a weird colour. I can't do anything about it. It's supposed to be white, but it looks a bit green to me.
Creamy, greeny, yeah, I can see what you mean.
Sick. Like it should be luminous.
Yeah.
Fluorescent or luminous.
No, that's not fluorescent at all.
No, luminous. You know, it's like it should give off light when you switch the lights off. You know what I mean? Get on with it. You're getting paid by the job, not by the hour.
Oh yeah, I know.
What did we say for the polishing part of the neck?
£7.50.
No, that was the incomplete neck.
I don't remember.
Not a lot, but we did 2 of them today. We can go somewhere. Ah, right. Is that the first one?
That was the first one.
Okay, let's move to the next one now. So little bits of leftover spare paper can go in the loose spare paper pile, which is building up over here.
Ugh. It's up way too early this morning.
You did 9:30.
No, it was 8. Was it that?
Is this because of certain American girls you've been playing games online with?
No, actually, this is someone that lives quite close.
Oh, okay. The girl. Cut the video.
But no, I just woke up.
So tell me more about this girl with this. It's late. Alright, we won't go there.
No, we won't.
Has your relationship status on Facebook changed? Has it?
No.
Oh, okay. Check it. Fine, that's good. That's enough. That's enough.
You and Mum have both been asking me this.
fine.
And I'm wondering why.
You came in asking us about alcohol and drugs the other day.
Yeah, well, I was interested.
Next thing it'll be about how a baby's made.
It's because of Harry and that.
Oh, right, yeah.
No, it was. Because he's always still out drinking. And I remember he used to do that here too.
That's it, yeah, true.
And I was just reminiscing about the time that he broke the window.
Oh, yeah. He was drunk and had forgotten his keys.
I thought it was a good idea to smash the window in.
And very kindly, the Housing Association very kindly replaced it. No, God knows why. Go on, next one.
Because they probably understand about...
Hang on, let's be orderly about this. Let's put them down in the order that we're going to use.
Until you clean this up, I'm not going to clean anything up.
Most of the rest of it's orderly.
Yeah,
right?
well... Look shit.
The rest of this...
You haven't even ordered the spanners in the right way. I had to do that.
Rubbish.
No, it's not rubbish. I had to do that.
You've been out here in the middle of the night reordering spanners.
It was the first time I come in here, I saw them. It's just
I'm
can't
going to
clean things
offshore
up.
this in a minute. I'm going to send this work offshore through the internet. Can you be useful and learn something about wiring guitars, please?
No.
I'm definitely going to buy a book. I'll be unstoppable when I have learned how to do it.
You won't.
I'm putting all manner of...
I guarantee you'll probably end up blowing it up or something. Yeah.
It's so simple.
It
just means...
so simple,
it's so
yet
simple,
you haven't been able to do it yet.
You just shouldn't take what you find on the internet for granted. It's a lie. Okay, come on, move along.
I'm moving along, so...
Get that nice mapley, whatever that, maple really. Really good hard wood there, isn't it?
Nice mapley maple.
Come along.
I'm just checking. Jeez.
Right.
I like being thorough with the jobs that I do,
Good.
as you're well aware of.
I was going to say maybe I should cut this new blank shape out of the oak guitar, but so much hard sawing I don't have the energy for that.
We can do that if you want. On payroll.
It's a really sharp sawing job in oak. That's a 2-inch thick oak.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
It's doable.
I'm not sure how I'm going to do it actually. It's way too thick for a jigsaw.
I was just about to say get a jigsaw.
No, way too thick.
No, you can get a thick jigsaw.
In fact, it's way too thick for a guitar really, but you know. Come on, let's go. Let's get this done. I really want to get this thing back together and out to the world. It's been here for ages.
It has.
I don't know why I've left it here for ages. I think it's probably because I've been thinking about ways that there's some discoloration on the back, and I've tried a couple of things to get rid of it, and can't for the life of me make it go away. Well, you know, you could if you really cut heavily away at the back end. I will sand down these bits here and go it again with waterborne lacquer instead of the nitro.
Waterborne makes it seem like a virus or something.
Waterborne. Yeah, it's a funny thing. It's much easier to use, and most of the guitars these days are probably lacquer anyway. No doubt, including it's much faster to dry, easier to manufacture. And, some of the custom guitars apparently sit for months curing with nitro because that's what they're custom guitars and they cost a lot of money. But mass-produced guitars like this are almost entirely waterborne or polyurethane because it's. I mean, this was great. Doing this, it was just done in a day. You know, you just paint it over and then come and sand it later on.
That's because it's a midget guitar.
No, that's not just because the lacquer is easy to use.
Didn't have much to dry.
No, but in principle.
I'm biased against the new ones.
Okay. Now this is your last polishing stage, so shoot your best shot.
Oh, that really hurts.
Okay, we think we're there, do we?
I do. We do.
Kind of nice, sort of. Got one more to do, remember? So on this one, if you want to, you can just use your hands on the polishing thing and just make sure all the sides of it all beautifully done, as well as going over the top. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have finished the polishing of this neck, these frets, and because of the way we've put the paper on, it should have made it a bit of an easier task to get off.
My way's still quicker.
Which way?
My way.
What's your way?
My way's just put it on, don't clip it at the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quicker. You just have to pull it, you just wrap it around.
And how do you get it off?
You just pull one bit and it all comes off.
Uh-huh. Old habits die hard.
It's because there's a better way.
Fine, you bring your young, innovative genius to the business and
I will.
depose me in a hostile takeover and off you go.
Well, I'll start employing people and mass produce Reloved Guitars all over the world and become the Prime Minister of Britain and, yeah.
That's okay.
Youth's ambitions, people.
Not a bad idea. And your finance minister would be Russell Brand.
Yes. No, he would be there in my place.
And his first act as finance minister would be to give away all his money to the needy poor.
He's a very, very generous person.
Russell?
Yeah.
Probably. Seems
Very politically active, but...
Yeah, he gets been accused of being naive, and I don't know, I suppose he is.
Yeah, I'd say he's radical, really, in a good way.
Well, it's one
But
of those...
there's a guitar show, not a politics show. And you are not...
What's this?
Not,
What's that?
that's
Is that a tractor or something?
tractor.
Right, so we're kind of almost got all of this stuff off, and then we'll switch to another guitar in a minute while I
Wash my hands.
Thomas goes and starts again. Okay, so you end up with a nicely done guitar with a very pleasant, easy tab riff-off system.
Yeah.
Which is very
It
rewarding.
took you 5 minutes to get ready in the first place.
Yeah, but it's so
Supposed to my idea.
OCD payoff.
Where's my idea?
Look at this, look how satisfying that is, young man. Delayed gratification. Right, and then we can take the other stuff off.
Thanks for giving it to me.
Thank you. Okay, so, very good.
Yeah.
We are done and ready to progress to the next stage, which would be,
What?
all things
Are you-
considered, being
are you-
equal. What would the
Putting
next stage?
everything back on.
Yeah, stuff back on, restringing, and then heading for action, setting the action and the intonation. Alright, I'll tell you what, while it's there, can you get that cleanish rag, and can you give it a once over with the naphtha to get some of this, because it's all lighter fluid. It'll pick up loads of grime.
Well,
It's not water, it's naphtha.
Naphtha. What the hell is naphtha?
Okay, lighter fluid, highly flammable.
So that's
But
put
not-
on
not-
merchandise.
No, it's a good.
Highly
I'm just
flammable.
gonna
Put it on
take
the
you
website.
outside and see what's going on out here. Ah, a little moon buggy. Yeah, just get all this dust off. You see, in that operation we've got quite a bit of dust. So yeah, you can't go.
Oh, if only the guitars stayed that kind of colour.
Flies. So this is. Oh my God, it's winter, so it doesn't look so great. This is the Reloved Guitars neighbourhood. Looks pretty good in the summer. Not so great in the winter, but it's a modest little garden shed.
Workshop.
Workshop. Nothing too glamorous. I quite like having put the camera on here now, because then I can run around.
You're so proud of that.
Yeah. It's, you know, innovations and all that. Or not. Okay. So everything cleaned up. Brilliant. So ladies and gentlemen, all done. frets levelled, polished and ready to go. And that process usually takes about an hour and a half, so no shortcuts to it. This guitar is ready to be reconstituted. All the wiring's okay. Got a little bit of body repairs to do, and then there's this slight discoloration here, which, try as I might, I couldn't get. I tried a few patches here, and I just couldn't get rid of it. So I'm not going to try any harder. I'm just going to sell it like that. Okay, so we will. Can you grab that one out of the way? Set E up there. Okay,
should we stop the recording?
Stop the video. So Thomas has got the white vintage
Hi.
SG here, and toothpicks. Vital tools for this job. Quick recap of this. We've levelled the frets, we've reprofiled them, and Thomas is now going to do the polishing bit. And this is where you take it from something that's covered in a bunch of scratches from this tool here, but it's still, all the frets are completely level, but the tops of the frets have got scratches from this. So you've got to use 240 grit paper, enough, however much it takes to get rid of all those scratches, and we have to be microscopically accurate. Throw that into the mix, and then once we've confident we've done that, then we remove those scratches with 800, and then we move from 800 to the sequence of micro mesh. And by the time we finish that at 1200 micro mesh grits, or whatever they call it, we will have polished it, and it will be playable. And we're not going to use the Dremel finishing touch, because actually I've discovered it doesn't add anything to it. It just takes more time. In fact, if anything, the reason I stopped is it probably takes it backwards from 12,000.
Do you reckon?
Well, if you check, I don't know, I haven't done the test, but I think that polishing compounds that we use are probably more abrasive than 1200.
Yeah.
So we get it to a pretty good shine.
Okay.
Trusting to paper. So Thomas, off you go. This is my
240.
So fingers up and over the.
Yeah.
You want
probably should explain that.
Down, yeah. Okay.
So with your fingers, you want them to go over the whole thing, as Sam said, and you want them to get the whole fret, not just the top, because you've got scratches all along it, and obviously you don't want scratches on it because that's horrible for playing guitars and string mending.
And you also don't want to flatten them off, so you don't just run a block over the top. So can you get your fingers pointing downwards?
What I do is I put pressure on it. So I put pressure like that, like that.
Okay.
And that goes over it.
If you go like that, it goes up and over.
Yeah, but then that hurts my fingers.
Then that's why you've got a thingy block. Anyway, the other thing to remember is to do, as you're going up there, watch out for this bodywork, right? In fact, should we mask that off?
Yeah, you want to mask it off anyway. It looks like that. It must be repainted anyway.
Yeah, you don't see this bit, so it doesn't matter what that looks like.
Yeah, but just, for my benefit.
Yeah, that's where the neck.
That's
wood on the neck.
Yeah, I know.
That's where it's glued in place.
Just looks horrible.
The most important thing in all of this, actually, or one of the important things, is to make sure that every time you use the sandpaper, you give all the frets the same amount of treatment.
Yeah.
If you
don't want to change the amount you're using them.
If you stick in one place, you end up lowering the frets again, which sort of undoes everything we've achieved so far.
Okay. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's not easy, and then your sleeves get caught on the edge of the neck.
This is the most annoying part about the whole thing, other than if the guitar doesn't work, because it sounds horrible, it feels horrible.
Okay, if you can't get in there with your fingers, because you're still going, what you're doing is you're making a flat surface.
Yeah.
Right, but what I need you to do is to go kind of. Now, if you can't do that with your fingers, it's because it's tricky. Just put it on there like that, right? And press it straight down, and let it make a noise. Right, you just want it riding up and over. You want to feel it bobbling as much as you can. And then if you wear it out, move the paper around a bit and keep going. Hand cut that.
You've murdered that.
Yeah, that's a tough job. And you're going to make sure you get every single stretch in the deal. Meanwhile, I'll fly around with the steady cam.
That's the only reason you like this stuff, isn't it? Just for that camera work.
Whoops, distortion there. Distortion on the mic. And make sure you also pay some attention to the edges. Remember, you're working on curves.
True.
Anyone think this was on some sort of expensive studio setup?
Yeah, we've actually got 50 people behind us.
This is my version of the Steadicam. That's all the Steadicam is, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's a camera with a great big weight on the bottom.
Yeah.
Bacon sandwich, nice. So,
See that one's dead?
yeah, you could pretty much tell when you've worn off. Yeah, no, anyway, yeah, but when you've worn it down smooth, it's had its day.
Let's have a look at that.
Yeah, get a really close up. You might need to lift it up and go to the light, or if that doesn't work, we could also augment it with a bit of special torchlight. Might not help. There will be scratches on there. I can see one already.
I can't see anything.
Right.
It just makes my eyes feel weird.
This is critical. See
Oh,
those?
you're looking on that.
See
one.
those little black
Yeah,
dots? Right. That's the zero
Yeah, that's
grit scratch.
That's-
Okay. So we just need what I suggest is when you find them on there, don't focus on any one spot.
Yeah,
but
no,
just keep going.
Keep going over them.
Keep going. And just concentrate on. You're working on a curve, remember? So give it that sort of curving feel. Otherwise, you'll end up trying to level the neck.
Another little torch. Make sure torch.
It's a bit nasty. The camera's just going to fall off here.
Put some really big weight on it, like down there.
There is a big weight on it.
Oh, that's not that big a weight.
Microphone. I am dumping the archery target.
Oh,
Yeah, if you get when you get loads of stuff built up, grab the
dust prime and brush thing.
dustpan and just brush it onto the floor rather than back. Yeah, just brush it down off the floor. So pick up the guitar and
Oh, you want me to pick up the guitar and take it off?
yeah, just
Can launch it
no,
off.
no. But
Yeah, well, I was
just
gonna
just
do
want it
that.
as low as possible
You're
because
forgetting.
otherwise you'll just breathe it in.
You're forgetting I've only got one hand.
What's wrong with you? You've been in combat or something?
No. Well, if I'm brushing it with one hand, I've only got on the...
True, but then you can
You're good at
stand
maths.
it on the floor.
You're a maths man, aren't you?
Right. I'm just going to do a bit of
Well,
quality,
I've got there's a
quality
few.
control.
There are a few, I think.
Point one out, see if you're spotting them right.
There's one
Yeah,
there.
definitely.
Mm.
Yeah. So you can see what happens is quite often we miss this bit somehow just
Yeah.
doesn't get the attention.
There.
Yeah. Okay. So there's quite a bit. See, the thing about using your fingers is you can get to the end of all of this.
You're using the wrong one. That one's a dead one.
All right. Even with a dead one, you can still get more out of it. And I'm just going to concentrate on using up the paper. Getting my money's worth out of the sandpaper. It costs. I'm doing the edges as well so they're not sharp or sticking out. Bin. Keep going.
I shall do.
It seems like a lot of hard work, but it really is the heart of it.
This is probably the easiest part,
In a
really.
way it is, but it's also the bit you've got to be really disciplined not to give up too early.
Yeah.
Or even convince yourself that it's replaced all those scratches when you can get there. I've done that in the past. Sometimes you just want to get on and you go, oh, I'm sure that's all gone. And then
Yeah.
you bend a string and you can feel it gritty. So I suppose when you have that thing and you know there's a few at this end, it's now evened up, I think. But if you do that, you just have to kind of think when you get to this end and you put a bit more pressure on.
Yeah. I think that's all gone actually.
Have a really good close look at each one and tilt it in the light if you need to make sure you can see. Ow.
Go on, one more. Yeah, no, there's not anything yet. Just in a close-up.
Here we see the master at work. Thousands of years of training and craftsmanship.
No, that's done.
Shall I just double?
Yeah, you have a double check.
Because,
you know, my
no, that's good.
perfectionism isn't as enough for you.
Look, if somebody was double checking my electronics, we wouldn't have had that V100 coming back. You know, get it right.
You are so salty over that V100.
I am. I'm really pissed off. At 3 o'clock this morning, I tell you, I was mighty pissed off.
I think I heard you.
Oh, yeah, the language was not nice.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, I was so fed up with it. I've just given up and had to buy a book. Oh, well, I'm going to buy a book. That's it. I can no longer hope to do it from internet wiring diagrams. It's just rubbish.
Well, don't use it for firewood at least.
The guitar?
Yeah.
No, it's a really nice guitar.
It is a
I'm
lovely
determined
guitar.
to make it work. But I think the guy who sold it to me in the first place was right. I think one of the pickups is screwed.
Yeah, well,
And
you should have checked that in the first place.
Well, I sort of did, but my micro voltmeter thing told me it said it had the right resistance, which I assumed meant that that must mean it's working, right?
No, not
But
necessarily.
I don't know. That's the bit I don't know, so I've got to learn more. Yeah, it's looking good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think we're all... Oh, no. Last 3. Right.
The ones you do.
No, it's just the bit that's really hard to do.
I know.
Okay, so
It's the horrible bit.
so I'm going to get a new bit, and I'm going to just... I said don't do one spot any more than any other, right? But I'm doing a whole chunk, right? And I'm determined to get these scratches out of the way. And then I'm going to switch around, come this way, and then concentrate the force a bit more on here.
Yeah.
This is so important a part of it. This is what makes the magic that the customer comes and plays it and goes, that's amazing. And it's because of the effort, the time and attention that we put in here. Obviously, with these guitars, right, they are quite flimsy.
They are.
So, you don't want to press too hard.
Awful.
Actually, flimsy is flexible. That's what springy is what I mean.
Well, it looks like it's about, you can tap it and it just bends, which is...
But you know what's
inflexible.
what's really good? I did a demonstration the other day. One of the things that people always say is when you do the intonation, do it in the correct position that the guitar will be in, the playing position, which I do now because I've got flack online for doing it wrong. But it still made nice guitars even if you did it this way.
Yeah.
But what's really surprising is what I did know because I'd seen it demonstrated, but you can demonstrate the gravity effect on that neck there is enough to pull the intonation slightly different to when it's in that position.
Yeah.
And you can measure it with your tuner, and you can just literally go, you can see it, ping it, get the harmonics right, and then you can turn it up, and it's flat, because when it's back here, the neck's bending down, and it's pulling the strings sharp.
Physics
And practicality, but it's easy enough to do all the intonation stuff standing up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy. Right, what I'd like now is to carry on giving it the works with, I say give it 2 of these 800s.
2 800s.
Yeah.
Alright.
Just concentrate on thorough, just getting the whole thing, the same coverage all the way. So in your mind you're thinking I'm moving from 240 now to 800, that's quite a big jump.
Yeah.
So you need to spend a fair bit of time.
And we have some masking tape coming up.
Oh, do the thing. What's the proper thing when that happens?
Got some.
Yeah.
What is that?
You can probably repair it with this.
Oh. Here's one I made earlier.
2 bits if you need to make sure. So that's a principle, remember, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we remind people of.
If you're in doubt, just slap some tape
it
over
out.
it. Just honestly, it's the best remedy. the guitar's ever feeling.
The serious point here that Thomas is definitely making there is, as soon as the masking tape lifts while you're doing the sanding, put some more on. Don't hope that it won't pull up.
Being picky and choosy.
I've got 6 tuners, inline tuners, but nothing to use them on.
I'm sure that won't be a problem for too much longer.
No. I need 3 asides for this this little jobby here, but I also need to do the frets on this.
Oh god.
What? Stumpy.
It's just a midget. It looks like it's gone into a war or something.
Do you know that people have liked the other one a lot?
Yeah.
To the point that I'm sure somebody would buy one.
Maybe.
Yes. Amputee. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah, it looks like that. It looks like... It's just... I don't know.
Do you think people might buy it out of sympathy?
I think that's what it is, yeah. Oh, that's really bad to say anyway, but...
Yeah, you said that on video. No, I have to disable comments now. Yes.
Oh yeah, you showed your neighbours have waken up.
It's a funny shape, this. I think it will work. This is a PV neck, and it's quite flat comparatively. Yeah. So quite nice condition, so it should be good. I'm going to put little small oval tuners on there. What?
You just want to make it look as weird as possible, don't you?
Yeah. I'm copying the
Why
same.
don't you give the body an octagon shape?
No, I'm copying the same body shape as last time. I'm trying to stick to oval triangle formula. So what do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
About what? About this?
Do you think everything on there is now down to 800 mil
Yeah.
and grit scratches?
It looks about right.
Just thinking about the edges of it, is there any? Do you think you're getting up and over the edges?
Well, with this one, because this one's longer than the other ones,
Here's how to do it.
it's going over.
Yeah. So here's how you do it.
Almost break the neck.
Well, kind of, but you're just getting coming up the sides a bit.
Yeah.
Just there, so you don't have quite so much rough stuff on the side.
Yeah.
You've got quite a good thing there to allow you to get in. So do you think that?
I reckon that's I reckon that's micro-meshable.
Everything's at 800.
Yeah. I reckon that's micro-meshable.
Okay.
Do you reckon?
Hey, Sam at Reloved Guitars in the workshop again. Just getting this white SG back into playing shape. Just put the various bits back on. I've done some kind of fills on the body. They're not fantastic, to be honest, but they're better than some of the holes that were there. It had a few bashes on it, hence it's not going to be the most expensive vintage SG, but it will be a beautiful playing one. And that's because that's what I have most control over, is the neck and the way things play. So we're ready to restring it now. So I'm just going to find me a string winder and a pair of pliers, and yep, pretty much everything ready to restring. It's a nice guitar. I've had it around for quite some time. It's just been sitting, hanging up really, partly because I had a few other SGs listed, so it wasn't a priority to add it to the list as well. For the stringing purposes, I'm going to put this on, pull back an inch, and then do the 1 over and 2 under routine with Morris. So first one goes over, I should go over. First loop goes over the top of the spare string, or the leftover string I should say, and the second one goes under twice. and this together will hold our tailpiece on once this is in place. Okay, let's move this a little bit so we can see what's going on. There we are. Whee! Pull this up out of the way, and I'm going to clip most of it off, most of the excess off. Just pop it there. Got a few things in the way here. I haven't really tied it up between each job today, but I will in a minute. So, next one. These vintage SGs are just great rock and roll guitars. It's probably about the 5th or the 6th one I've had through here, and I really do rate them highly. Very simple in some ways, no thrills, but that's in a very good way. There's not a lot that goes wrong with them. There's no clever, no complicated electrics, just simple twin humbuckers, 2 tones, 2 pickups, 2 volumes, 2 tones, twin humbucker setup, and a great neck that goes on forever. You really know you're playing an SG when you've got your hands on one of these. I have to say my personal preference for SGs is a different brand. I've got an Ace Pro myself, which I like because the neck does go a little further into the body than it does on these particular vintage SGs, but that's a personal preference. But I've become quite a fan of the SG over the last year. Generally, I really like the way you really feel you're playing a rock guitar when you've got an SG. Something about it sort of concentrates all the attention right down into this end of the guitar. Partly because of the way the weight sits, but just the fact that you know it all happens down here. I hope for a bit of nice weather tomorrow I can put this one outside and take some nice pictures to put on the listing. But of course, after putting the strings on, next part of the setup is that we put the neck under tension with the strings. That comes in a minute, and then once the neck is under tension, we're able to set a playing action, and once we've got a playing action set, then concentrate on the playing action at the nut end. Okay, that goes under, and it goes under twice probably. Sort of difficult doing that one backwards, it's always annoying. Okay. I did that thing yesterday where I went to cut off these extra pieces on a guitar and actually cut through one of the loops. I don't know how it happened, but that cost me a string. Some things like that occasionally happen. Very annoying. Luckily I already had an open packet from having lost a string on some other job. So kind of was probably the best time for it to happen, but it does annoy you when it does happen. So first loop over the top, and then second one, you just want to make sure it goes under, which it does, and then as it comes down, starts to tighten up, we just make sure it's on the saddle properly at the end before we tighten up, which it is, and then cut off the excess. And then there's a bit of a process of stretching the strings, which I learned from Gavin Downey, a New Zealand guitar tech who looks after a gigging band, or a series of gigging bands, and Gavin showed me how, or showed people how to do, how to restring, but also how to, this restringing method here, but also how to stretch the strings once you've done that. That's quite a good way of doing it. And he should know, since he's somebody who does it all the time for, so I'm going to do this, He does it all the time for bands on tour, and he has to do it very quickly as well, which is quite useful. So somebody in his position has definitely in the know when it comes to seeking advice. Okay. So I'm just going to make sure everything's in its correct slots and sitting on the correct saddles. Right, so put all those up in the bin out of the way. Right, and so finally our lovely SG with a strange, I have to say, slightly odd white colour, which is a bit greeny white, is now ready to be tuned up. And what Gavin suggests doing when you put new strings on is to take the strings between your finger and thumb and kind of press, do it one way or the other, but press them, stretch them sideways, and do it the whole length of the guitar. And his experience is you only have to do this twice and you've taken all the natural stretch out of the string. So we'll do it for each string as we go, and then we'll tune up and we'll do it again. Obviously when you tune up it gets harder to get your fingers in there. There's not as much stretch in these unwound strings because they are just what they are, a piece of metal. You've got to remember that these are attached, they go over a bridge which has a sort of knife edge on it, so be careful not to pull too far in any one direction, or you'll overstress it. And I'm going to use the amp. I assume that's an A. And then we'll do that stretching again one more time, remembering it's all under sort of full tension now, so it's harder to grab the strings, and they're also under tension, more tension, so you don't really want to push them too hard against those anchor points in case they break. But for someone like Gavin, who has to change strings and get the guitar ready to go, and for musicians who can't afford to have strings that go out of tune as soon as they start playing, you know, it's critical that he's developed a way that works, which is great for us non-gigging or non-gigging people to learn from. This is, you know, what I love about these these SGs. They're playable guitar without hardly doing anything to them. That is just restrung, strings stretched. I'm just looking down here. It's not a very good way of doing it because the neck's under pressure, but there's an action here of about 2 millimeters max, 1.5, 1.75, which is quite low. It can't go much lower. This is wound right in, so that's an interesting challenge when you've got an action that's as low as it can go. We've got a bit of work, a little bit of work to do up here, which will lower the action, get it back to where we want it. But nice guitar straight away after having put the strings on and taken some of the tension out. You can probably see on here, this is for, I'll bring this out in the photographs when you see it, but when it's listed. But you can probably just see these. I'll keep it very still if I can and show you the patterns, or the dark patterns on the paintwork. That's the major blemish on these things. There are some little chips which I've polished out as much as I can, filled with a little bit of lacquer where necessary. But the major discoloration is those black spots on the back. So that's the only thing that spoils the finish of this guitar. But as a playing guitar, it just immediately comes together well. And if we just put in a quick check of the electrics, which I haven't heard since I got it, I think. Electrics working, so just needs to be set up. I'll switch that off for now, and we'll do whatever we can. The action here, as I said, is as low as it will go. I'll give you a reading on it. It's currently coming in at, probably need other glasses, but yeah, 2 millimeters, and that is a fraction higher than I would ideally like it, but very interesting that this guitar doesn't give you any option to go any lower than that, simply because that's the lowest. The bridge is currently at its lowest setting, so it's never been lower than 2 millimeters, and I guess that is going to be just a constraint on this this guitar that we're going to have to live with. There is no way of getting it lower, other than potentially you could take the bridge off and file down the flat surface here, so it would sink further onto the post. The posts themselves are as far in as they will go. Yep. So there's no more action room on that, and that's about it. That's the lot. We'll get a little bit off at this far end here, so I think what we'll see is that will take us down to. And we're talking, by the way, when I'm saying 2 millimeters, I'm talking about 2 millimeters at the 22nd fret. We'll go down. It's not exactly 2. It's more like 1.75. Kind of low, but I prefer it to be a fraction lower. We'll get it a fraction lower by making the adjustments at the nut end, which is something which is one of the steps followed by the intonation. Now on this guitar I've set the intonation screws to the back side. It doesn't make any difference in terms of how it plays. It's a personal preference, but I like to access them from this side rather than, partly because I'm right-handed, and then I can do them with my right hand over the top of the stop piece, tail piece. If they're on the other side, purely cosmetic choice, but if they are on the other side, then not only do I have to go in over the top of this pickup, which can be difficult, I also have to do it with my my non-dominant hand, or whatever, my left hand, which just makes it harder. So for me it's better pointing that way. you can put it whichever way you want when you change your strings. But so here we have it. What I'm also going to have a look at now, the neck is under load. Just quickly adjust this. Don't want it too shocking. So I'm just going to have a look now. I'm doing it sideways so that I don't have gravity interfering too much. It's quite a relief in that neck. It's quite a curve. It's enough. I wouldn't say it's too much. And another way you can tell is to fret off the first and second, the first and last fret, and then just look at the gap in between, and you could measure it. And I think it's just about right. We could take a tiny fraction out. So that still stayed in tune. Sorry, you can't see that. That stayed in tune quite nicely there. So Gavin's method really does work. I'm going to put back on the truss rod curver now, and actually I'm in a bit of a problem here because I'm missing some suitable screws for this. I'll find some somewhere, but I need a couple of little. Ideally, it would be nice to get some little gold ones to do the job. Somewhere along the way, that's one I need for some other. That's my pickup retaining screw. I'm still short of a few of those as well, which isn't brilliant. So I'm going to have to do a bit of a search everywhere. Oh, there's one. Is that sort of gold? Yeah, let's call that sort of gold. Yes, I'm short of a few screws for certain pickup retaining tasks, so I'm now too short. I'll look through every single bucket and container I've got. Meantime, I do have enough to do this job, which is rewarding. So I'm going to put back on the truss rod cover and just start off by holding it in place with the first of my three, which is probably a big one that needs to be there. I'll see how well it goes in or not. Yeah, it's okay, it works. Probably a little bit too big, but that's okay. It's gold and it looks nice. And I've got these other two, which are the correct size ones. Just got to sneak their way around the string to fit in place, which is lovely. That's in. And the final one. Okay. Again, bend the string a little bit, just out of the way, and make sure this goes in properly. Lovely. Oh, that first one is a little bit too gold almost, but still looks okay. Right, so the only thing outstanding now on this guitar is the intonation, which we will set with the aid of the amplifier and the tuner. Since we've got it here and it's on, let's put it up on the desk where we can get at it. And the tuner is going to be my iPhone, which needs to be on silent mode, which it is. And I'm going to use, come on, it's okay, I'm going to use the iStrobosoft tuner app, and hopefully you'll be able to see it if I plonk it there. You can see it and you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to plug in the guitar and give my, oh, I'll put this on again. Plug in the guitar and give myself some sound. What I also want for this is a screwdriver. I'll use this one, I probably can reach quite well with that screwdriver, and I'm going to do this in the upright position. And so the idea here is we've got to just make sure that each of these strings is the correct length for this neck. And the way we do it is by pinging the harmonic and tuning the guitar to the harmonic. when the string is the right length, what happens is that the fretted note is the same as the harmonic note. And you can see here it's slightly flat, and that means the string is too long. And so to adjust this, we need to, God, it's hard to get to any which way you try it. I've got a better screwdriver for this job. No, it's a simple answer to that. Got one on this one, but I don't think I can reach it very well, even still. Maybe. Okay, so I am going anti-clockwise, making the saddle come towards the nut, which makes the string shorter. Retune it. That's pretty close for this kind of guitar. It changes all the time. I'm going to get a pick and do it with that. Not bad. I'll call that quits for now, and then I'm going to move to this one, the A. That's flat as well, so the screw needs to come anti-clockwise to bring, it's hard, to bring the saddle that way. I find these tunematic bridges really inaccurate for my liking, I have to say. Seems like you can almost get a different reading every time. The Fender style ones are much easier to work with. I'm going to leave that there and move to the D. Again, that's flat, so I'm going to bring wind this anti-clockwise or towards me to bring the saddle forward. I'm going to try it now. Close. It's good enough for my liking. Sharp. So this time I'm going to, with a G, I'm going to wind it in clockwise. If I can get purchase on it. It's pretty hopeless positioning of things. Sometimes I'm tempted to get brute force on this because it just doesn't seem to want to do it. sharp. So if it's slightly sharp, I'm going to wind it in a bit more, bring it back a little bit more. And a bit more. It seems to be working, but it's I never like doing this on a tunematic bridge, I have to say. Okay, stop there. Slightly sharp. So clockwise. Oh god, this is where it starts not wanting to play ball. Come on. Gee. Sometimes they're just stuck, and that's the fact. Slightly sharp, so again that means I want to pull it backwards, which means I don't know why these two strings, the top two are really, really tight and almost impossible to get to. Oh, Christ. Without either knackering. Thank you, now it's moving. Don't run the risk of breaking the string, it's very, very delicate. They are so hard to move. Come on. Close. Right, so I'm going to call that close enough. There's minor differences. Right, that's good. That's that bit done, and then actually the final bit, I forgot doing it slightly the other way around this time. The final bit in the whole sequence, whether it should come before or after, is the bit that is known as setting the action over the nut. And it's starting to warm up now. Christmas time. You probably like my special Christmas shirt. I don't know if you can see it under here. I have too many guitars, said no one ever. Christmas present. Right, my little block of thingy. And here comes the fun bit, and this is about getting the nut slots down to the right level. I'm going to be fairly quick with this, and I'm going to use my 11s, 9s, 16s, 42s down the end, 42, 32, 24. Yep, this is about making sure that the playing action over the nut is the correct height. And I know from experience, I'm not going to go into details, but I know from experience that the height that works for these guitars is over the first fret is 0.3 of a millimetre, and there's always something that catches me out. The battery just went. Right, I'm currently, I don't know where it conked out, so I'm just going to have to repeat myself. I'm on the last stage of this now. I've intonated the guitar. I'm now just setting the correct heights for the nut slots, and I'm doing it with a setting of 0.3 of a millimetre gap for each string over the first fret, and I'm using my nut files to cut down the slot to get myself the correct gap. And I can check by putting it back in, bring it up roughly to tension, and put the feeler gauge under again. If you can play the note cleanly, there's a bit more room to go, a bit more height to go. It's when the feeler gauge starts to cause it to buzz, you know you're at or very close to the 0.3. You can also see there's a little shadow that gets less and less as you get closer and closer. And if you're very careful, you can't go wrong. And before the battery ran out, I was talking about what's the worst that could happen. The worst that could happen is that you buy another nut, or if it's a white nut, you could use the baking powder and super glue rescue treatment, which means you put a little bit of blob of baking powder into the nut slot and blob a bit of viscous or runny super glue onto it, and that will make a new cement which you can then basically file. So this clearly takes some files, requires some files that you are not cheap, but they're really worth having because it means you can always set your guitars up the right way. Almost there on this string. Yeah, so they may cost you 50 quid, but I promise you they'll make more than 50 quid's worth of difference to your favourite guitar, let alone all the others that you'll have possibly in the rest of your life. So now I'm going to move on to the next string. Same gap, different file. Check it first. You can see the gap, see the shadow. Slack it off, move it to one side, cut it a bit, drop the string back in, bring it up to tension, check the gap again, see the gap is still big. You know, if the worst comes to the worst is you have to buy another nut, then you'll have learned what to do for the sake of about 5 quid's worth of nut. It's more than worth it to risk it for the sake of the amount of improvement that it actually makes to your guitar. And you can see it's not quick. And it's not quick, so therefore you also don't screw it up quickly. If you take a little bit each time, like I'm doing, there's a certain pace to it, and you'll have to work hard to go really badly wrong. Again, still see the gap and the notes still ringing out. And once we've got these gaps correct on these 3 strings, I'm going to fill these slots with a bit of graphite and then put all 3 strings back in, and that graphite will help the strings to go through the slots cleanly without sticking. It's just a lubricant. Again, still a bit more to go. So you can see it's probably 8 or 9 goes at this. There is a tiny, that'll do. Okay, so like I said, I'll now slack off all 3, and I will put in some graphite, which I need to put onto some surface because it's really hard to use. Oh, too much now, that's a waste. I need a small open container, which I never managed to find, like a little cap or something, but I haven't got it. Anyway, until such times, I will start with this little piece of sandpaper. I'm going to put a little bit of graphite on the end of here and just tip it in, sprinkle it basically into the 3 slots I've done. And it's going to make a mess and go everywhere, but it's fine, you can blow it out later. So drop all 3 strings in. Again, they're all done. Blow the excess away, wipe it off, and then tune them. So that's the bottom 3 done. Now we'll do the same with the top 3, but to do this I'm going to need to drop off all 3 of them first, and in a way we want to be winding these as little as possible. These strings are a lot less forgiving. I need to tune this one. Yeah, these are a lot less forgiving, so with these we want to get, first of all we want to get the right file, but we want to try and do and undo them as little as possible. So we're trying to get the cuts done quicker. Right, so the same principle applies. Where's it gone? That's 11, 16, 24, this one. Cut the G slot. Up to roughly the right pitch, see the gap, drop it off again, pull it to one side. Make sure you got the right blade. Again, loads of room, so try and get this one down quicker. loads of room still. With this I'm trying not to slack it off too much. I'm just trying to move it sideways. Okay, starting to take it down a little bit now. Now if I go too far on this black one, I'm going to end up having to put a new nut in, because you can't rescue it very well with white baking powder and glue mix. It does look a bit odd, a bit crappy. So you really have to be even more careful with black. Nearly. So you can see that, there you go, that'll do for that one. And with each of these in turn now, since you're heading towards the finish, you can drop in the silicon, graphite, as you go. And put the G string back in permanent. Okay, now we'll move to the B. Hello.
All right.
I'm good. All right, I'm just doing the final touches on this one. Doing the final bit of God, let's shut the door. Shut the door. It's freezing. Sorry. Just doing the final nut settings on here. So take this out, do a little tiny bit of cutting. Put it back in, tune it up, roughly. You see the gap, can you see the shadow? There's a gap under there, so while I need that to be down to there. So while there's a gap and you can hear the note ring, it's got a bit more to go. So do it again, a slight angle downwards. Ring's clear, see the gap, move it to the side, a bit more. And it's really painstaking and careful, but you don't risk...
No, it's worth it though, isn't it?
You don't really risk getting it wrong because you're going so slowly all the time.
Yeah. I came to say dinner's nearly ready.
Oh, cool.
I sent you a message.
Oh, I didn't. My phone's on filming mode,
Oh, right.
which is what I'm doing.
Okay.
I think I'm still
Hello.
on. Okay, cool.